you talked a little bit about mentorship, and I was just wondering, for those of us going into like politics or are thinking of going into like public service work, like what is the thing that you think was like, what is the thing that you would want all of us to come out of this knowing, not only as like Asian American women, but just as, I guess, as a community going into politics?
I think for me, I think that the one thing I want to tell you is just don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to ask for, you know, some advice or mentorship or anything it is that you want. My cell phone number is 917-2119. If you want internships, you can come to my office. If you want to know how the civic process works, you can come and you know, shadow me for a day or come and watch how things work. My chief of staff is Mauricio, he's right there. I'm serious. And again, I'll repeat my number if people need it. So feel free to ask. You know, when I first started, I was an intern at the Washington State Legislature, and Sharon Tomiko Santos, she came up to me and she said, you know, I heard that, you know about me. And I'm like, yes. Thank you so much. And she was just like, we're gonna work together someday. I was really moved when she said that, and I did go and ask her for help, and I did go and ask her for her mentorship, and she gave it to me. I think that it's incredibly important because she was the one, you know, who, when I was getting ready for my very first interview, for my very first job, she came through and looked through my resume and took the time to edit everything, took a whole day. And then she went to her own closet, pulled out clothes for me because she knew I couldn't afford new clothes, and she dressed me for my interview, and she gave me a couple sets, and she's like, just in case you mess it up. But that's the kind of mentorship that we need to be providing one another. And so, again, my cell phone number, if you need to write it down. 917-780-2119.
Other questions?
Hi, my name is Kristen Chung, and I want to thank all of you for, one, representing us and really being such a great pipeline, and also just developing mentors yourself. So for the past couple of years, I've kind of decided that hopefully one day, God willing, that I will run for office if I feel that I'm the best person for the job. But like, of course, I'm going to brace myself in the years to come about, of course, the criticism. And there's good criticism and there's unnecessary criticism that I know that the two of you have faced. And I want to know what you tell yourself to get through it, so that I can remind myself when I go through it.
You know, you gotta have thick skin. You know, there's no doubt about it. And, you know, somebody once told me if someone's coming down on your heart and they're really, you know, criticizing you negatively, just imagine them pooping. Mean, scary white boys that try to intimidate you. So as they're trying to intimidate me, all I think is I try to picture them pooping like you and I poop pretty much the same way. So that's my piece of advice from the field.
You should write that down. I'm writing it down. I think I don't have very thick skin, maybe. I have very permeable skin. I think that I will admit this. I mean, I'm somebody who's worked in the public sector for over 15 years. All the things that, I mean, I've never even spit gum on the ground. I've never smoked a cigarette. I don't even know what some stuff, I'm like, I've never done anything. I'm trying to swear. And yet, like, if they can't find something, they will make stuff up. You know? Like, they will make stuff up. But it doesn't matter. That's the thing. And no matter what, I think you shouldn't brace yourself for criticism, because you're awesome. Whatever it is, like, and when you say like, I have to wonder if I'm the best at something, well, don't run if you don't think you're gonna be the most qualified, right? I mean, if you are running, then you obviously think you're the most qualified. You have to believe it. If you don't believe it, then, you're trying to convince everybody else. So that's the thing, you have to believe in yourself. Whatever it is that you're doing, you believe in yourself, and that's it. The rest of it is just noise. The rest of it is just noise. You're always gonna be, too tall, too short, too fat, too skinny. Your hair's gonna be too long, too short. Your dress is gonna be too short. Your shirt's gonna be too tiny. I don't know, whatever. Somebody's gonna find something to say about you. And it doesn't matter, because it's what you believe that matters, right? And if you believe that you're ready and you're the best, then you are. And then you just gotta tell everybody else and make them believe it, right? That's it.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for being here today. I come from a background of working with youth, and you mentioned briefly that you have some youth working in your office who are very excited. And thinking back to my own childhood growing up, being in politics was never something that was just anything that I ever imagined. And so I'm wondering, what are some ways that we can make this more of a possibility for youth to just even think or dream about? If there are any sort of programs you currently run or ideas that you have, I'd love to hear them. Thank you.
One organization that comes to my head really fast is Ignite. Ignite trains young women at the early stages of their civic leadership development and connects them to networks, creates a cohesive cohort for them to be mentors for one another. But I have to say, for the New American Leaders Project, like our youngest candidate who ever got elected was in Arizona. He was 19 years old, and he was the youngest school board member there, and ended up becoming Cartwright school board president in his next term. So there really is no age limit to political leadership. And the great thing about New York City is, even though it's super cutthroat and super competitive, there are a myriad of political opportunities that your youth can pursue. From community board, can somebody shout out like what the minimum age? 16. You can be a 16-year-old community board member. There is county committee, there's district leader, and then you can always, right now with city council elections and city elections, there's always a candidate who can use youth leaders to volunteer for their campaign. So a myriad of opportunities to channel into, especially this year.
We have a couple of other organizations. There's Emily's List, Eleanor's Legacy, 21 and 21. These are all different organizations that are featuring women. Unfortunately, there's not that many minority women who are ready to run or wanting to, or think they're ready to run. I think it's a lie that they're not ready to run. I think it's just that they don't think that they're ready to run. And I think that, when you're saying, to hope for, to dream for, I mean, just do it. I think that it's really silly to keep on putting it out, because other people never have to ask that question. When it's a white guy, they don't ask. They just think that it's theirs to take, right? We don't have to ask anymore.
My name is Bonnie Seng, and I wanted to ask you guys about campaigning and particularly fundraising. What was it like to ask for donations? I kind of feel like the concept even, and I was part of NAPAWF, and even asking for contributions for NAPAWF is really hard for me. Like, how did you get up and ask for money for yourself?
Other people, like anybody else who's running, except for minority women, I have to say, women of color had it the hardest, because so many groups are ready and ready-made and have a pipeline for all different kinds of candidates, when you're a man, when you're, in a club or any of those kinds of things. Like, these are all different, folks that, when you're working on somebody else's campaign. I've worked on a couple of campaigns, and so some of the campaigns that I've worked on, and literally people are just like, oh, when you call them up, oh, the regular donation, no problem. And then it's like, how is it so easy? But when you're a woman and when you're a woman of color and you're from a community that is just starting to become politically active, it is so much more difficult, because they don't have the culture or the education or the readiness yet, right? Like they don't know yet how to give. They don't know what the cycle is yet. They don't even know the difference between city, federal, and state government. I think that it's really, really key of us to be able to educate folks on how things work. My mom didn't even know until I was running what this meant. And she came and she helped me, and then she realized how important it was for her to vote. And that was the first time. I mean, she voted in presidential elections. She's never voted on the state or the city level, none of the local races. And this is the first time she realized, oh my gosh, if I vote, I have a voice. This is actually the reason, it makes me feel like an American. This is the reason that we were fighting so hard. I didn't realize what it was like. And I think that, when we are calling to fundraise, it's also about cultivating for the next thing. That's why I also said something about, resources not being finite. Because when we are getting into the practice of fundraising for each other, to make sure that folks know how it works, then it starts to become more and more of a natural thing, a natural progression of things. And then people are more ready to go, oh, what's a meet and greet? What's a house party? These are all things like, my mom would not know what that is. Like none of the folks in my community knew what that was. And I think that it's really, really important to help people understand like how the fundraising works, when we're talking about these key terms that people are using without really realizing that it's actually slang for one group of folks that have been in that culture for so long. Like it really doesn't make sense within some of our cultures, right? And so, I think that we can change things also. I think that the fundraising has to be a little bit different, right? We can tap harder and deeper within our family and friends in a way that other people can't. I think that that's something that's true, right? We have generations of folks just living with us. It's so great that New York, your family can give unlimited. These are all things that we can completely talk about, and there's lots of different ways that we can learn how to make things make sense for our communities, and I think that it has to be a dialogue that we're having. The dialogue has to start, the way that we're raising has to be changed, and I think that it's totally possible to be different. I raised $500,000, and that was what it took to win in Lower Manhattan. Nothing less than $500,000, and I had to raise it, or else I couldn't win. And so, how did that happen? It happened because I had to look at raising completely differently.
It's really hard to ask for money. It's harder to ask for money when it's yourself. And it's because there's not a good level of awareness as to what this money is for, what it's being used for. I have a running mate who's running with me for Assembly, and she's Irish American, and she literally will call up her friends and say, oh, guess what, I'm running for Assembly, will you donate? And they'll say, what's the max, $7,400, all right, I'll send you a check. And I tried doing that, right? I tried doing I'm like, all right, that's how it works, all right, got this. Like literally my closest friends, hey, yo, I'm running for Assembly this year, you think you can contribute some money? It's gonna take a lot of money to win. Yeah, sure, I'm down, how much do you need? $7,400, I'll give you $74. I mean, it's just not knowing. I mean, I literally would ask for $200 and would get pushback and hesitation and resistance. I called somebody I'm close to and I said, will you donate $200 to my campaign? And they said, oh, let me think about it. So I said, okay, I'll call you back. I hung up the phone, called them back 5 minutes later. Hey, I'm raising money for breast cancer. Will you donate $200, and it's just, and they are more willing, right? For example, when we have a Korean that's going off on a missions trip from church, the amount of money that we can pull together is unbelievable on a dime's notice, right? Because it's something that we're used to. We are used to donating in that fashion. But it's hard, but you just gotta break through and just keep asking and keep educating people and get that awareness out there.
It is just harder because, it's like this weird thing where you're like, and then it's very humbling. but when you're running, like you end up like, well, I have no more pride or shame. So it really does feel weird. It feels very weird. And so, I think that, that's an excellent question. It's really hard as a woman especially, because you're put in a position where there's a power dynamic that it's a very uncomfortable thing, and people will say things to you, and it feels very bad. But it's okay. When you have no more shame left.
Can I just say that every time we do a fundraising module, and one of our alum who runs city council comes in, every single slide says fundraise shamelessly and consistently, and that's every other slide. So shameless is kind of the big deal. But what I wanted to share really quickly is that it's also a perception thing. So it's like thinking of fundraising as like begging is one thing, and it'll inform how you go about it. But if you think of yourself as a vessel for community change, changing and uplifting your community, and you being the best candidate out there in your race, and you telling your family member or your potential donor, you're not investing in a person through this donation, you're investing in the betterment of your community, it just clicks. It just clicks in a different way. And one tactical thing that we share with our candidates is to have a glass or bottle of water next to them when they're on the phone, so that when they do their ask and then they set their amount, $300, $150, whatever it is, they can just drink the water before going lower and lower and lower before the other person answers. Sometimes it's like, you never know with immigrant communities how we invest in one another. Some alum come in and say that their abuela gets really mad when they aren't asked to donate. Because that means you don't think that person has enough money and that person has enough of a voice to commit to your campaign. So I think there's a perception shift that we need to also consider as well.
Thank you so much. You guys are so inspiring. I was talking to someone today about holding our elected officials accountable. And he's a person who's run charter schools, he's been an elected official, and he was in New Jersey. And he was talking about how in business, there are just like numbers that business people just look at all the time to see if they're on track. And I wanted to ask, what are the numbers or what are the metrics that you have set for your constituencies? And I guess as context for that, I think it's really exciting that there's so much political energy in the Asian American and feminist communities now. And I think we're getting sophisticated enough at a point where it's not just good enough to be an Asian-faced candidate anymore, and that there is distinction between Asian candidates. So I guess the question is kind of like, how do you want to be held accountable? And do you think being like an Asian American feminist makes you choose different metrics than, say, someone who, like, I'm just going to refer to in a past race, there was someone who said that he could represent Brooklyn better than like Nydia Velasquez because he's Chinese and there are more Chinese people there or something. There was that kind of, those overtones to a lot of Asian American candidate races. So I guess that's the context for my question about metrics and how do you choose your metrics and how they're informed by your identities.
I think that every single person would probably have different metrics on what they measure themselves by. I mean, I think for me, I look at what I think of as, whether or not I was successful, if I felt like, if I made a particular impact. Is that what you're asking? Yeah. Like whether what it was that I would measure myself against? Yeah. To say I made impact. Yeah, I got asked this question before by another person, and I have to say, I think for me anyway, I just want to have everybody say that I represented them well. I think that would make me really happy, and that they felt like government was more accessible. So for me, in my district, I think that there was a lot of a feeling of betrayal by government, right, in my district. And I think that, we had to have a lot more transparency and things have to be changed. And I wanted to make sure that people felt like they could access me. I'm a pretty accessible person, aka my phone number. But I feel like, one of the biggest things was to make sure that, folks would have that measurement. And I'm very I'm actually very data driven. So I actually make all of our constituent services, you know, very tabulated. So we have, you know, something I started for Ron actually in his office, I'm also adopting in my office, is what we call the district trends report, which lets people know, like, you know, what are some of the top 3 topics that people come into the office for. And so I would always make statistics on, you know, when people call in, when people, you know, actually write in, or when people show up themselves, you know, all of the different things in constituent services. I want to make sure to know what are the biggest things that folks are needing from me. And that way I can be able to service the constituency better, right? So I'm always trying to make sure that people find me accessible, that people think that I'm listening, and that people know that I care about how to improve their life, right? And make sure that, you know, we have the access that is necessary. I mean, you had mentioned, you know, before that, you know, you saw constituents with language access issues. You know, that was, to me, something that I saw a lot in both my district and Ron's district when I was his chief of staff. You know, we had, you know, 60 to 120 people a day in that office because he was the only Asian American elected official. I'm hoping that it's less now that I'm there in Chinatown area, but like it's really about making sure that we are known to be accessible. I think that that's my metric. I want to be that person to actually say that, you know, hey, this is, it's a huge lie that government's not accessible. That's the one thing that people need to stop believing, right? I want to make sure that people know that government is completely accessible. It's that it's a big lie that other people want you to believe that it's not. And it's particular groups of folks that want you to believe that it's not. And we have to just completely shatter that lie. And I'm going to try to make sure that while I'm there, that's completely true. And I can make people advocate for themselves, right? And for me, that's always been my mission, and it's always been something that you know, I did as a staff person, as a lobbyist for a group called the Statewide Poverty Action Network, where I'm an advocate for low-income folks, where I work for the EPA, and when I'm a member. You know, I think that all of those things, you know, were positions where I was able to say, like, hey, these are secrets that there is no secret. This is the big secret, right? Like, this is it. We have to make sure that we are making it so that people know how open that door is. And for me, if people feel like government is more accessible while I'm there, that's what I've accomplished.
Hi, I'm Adrian, and as others said before, thank you so much for being here and sharing your thoughts and experiences with us. My question is, obviously running for office is like the final boss battle, like that's the ideal for representation, but for folks who maybe aren't at that life stage or circumstances aren't, or it's not in the stars at this point in time, what would your suggestions be for people to get more involved in politics while having a full-time job and having other commitments, whether be through educating their communities or what other ways we can educate ourselves and be involved?
I think it was mentioned before, there are a lot of positions. I think you had mentioned like the school board, community board. Yeah, we don't have those in New Jersey, it's a little bit different, but there is a lot of political engagement you can get at a much lower level, which is a lot more tactile and more, I think in terms of, it may be even more impactful to the community that you live in. You can also volunteer for a campaign. That actually gives you a lot of exposure, it gives you a lot of insight. If you have any interest, even far future, it actually is, I think it's a great way to get involved and also to meet a lot of community leaders, which can then lead you to a different ongoing position after the campaign is over.
And just look up who your legislators are and then ask to meet with them, right? They should meet with you. You should look up who your city council folks are. You should look up everybody who represents you so that at least you know them. And then, you know, make sure that you're actually, you know, writing in when there's issues that you care about. You don't even know how many times I read all those emails. I sit there and I email my staff in the middle of the night and they hate me. So, you know, these are all things like, you know, that are so important because if you're, it's a very minor, if you're just calling in, if you're, you know, writing in about issues, those are ways that you're getting involved, because you're actually adding your voice to somebody's entire platform, right? Because I really do care. I actually, read texts, tweets, whatever,
Shed light on an issue that both Sasha and I are really passionate about, which is gender parity in city council. Right now, out of all the city council members in office, about 13 are women of color. Is that number less right now?
It's going to be less very soon.
If all of the term-limited women in city council are not replaced by more women of color, there would only be 9 out of the 50-plus city council members. So again, there's city races right now. There are political clubs who can use volunteers. And if you are a member of a political club, then you will have a say in the endorsement process. So who is going to be the candidate that you will volunteer for and give resources to. And there are always candidates that you can just reach out to. They have campaign websites out. Put in your information there. There is always there are petition days that are happening in the next couple of weeks. There are opportunities to host little fundraising parties in your own community. There are a dozen of different ways for you to be involved, especially right now when your voice is needed more than ever.
And just to echo that, there's so much energy right now around people getting involved, and a lot of the attention has been focused, I think, pretty exclusively in some ways on running for office as sort of the thing to do. We need so many people to run for office, and we need so many people to help to build the movement that will carry folks to be able to drive really amazing things like raise the age of criminal responsibility, like Fight for 15. We need social movements that are going to help to uplift that too. So pick the issue that you want to get involved in. There's constituencies around all of this work. And if for folks who live in New York City, Marian mentioned this, because we're in a city election cycle, petitioning starts on June 6th. If there's a candidate that you're interested in, they are desperate for your help. Find them, tweet at them, ask them how to get involved. So much of this work is volunteer-led. The last thing I want to say is, because it's a city election cycle, lots of people are going to be hiring in January 2018, both on the mayor's side and the New York City Council, the legislative body of city government. So the opportunities will certainly present themselves, and do all that you can do to reach out. But I think finding the right fit is really invaluable.
So it feels like among my friends, particularly the Asian American ones, tend to lean away towards politics. And I have a really difficult time getting them to go out, to donate, to be politically active. So my question is, how would you, what do you guys say to Asian Americans particularly, motivate them to be politically active?
Asian Americans love to complain. Well, I think that one of the things that we have to continue to do is we have to make sure, and karaoke. We have to make sure that we are actually, I guess, letting people be involved first. I think that once you understand what the stakes are, I think it's much more of a reason to continue to be involved. So many of the young people, like I said, that came to my office, if they got involved in the campaign, they want to stay. Why? Because they invested. They invested in making change, they invested in me, they invested in the office and the constituents that they talked to, they door knocked, that they made a connection with. And the entire district is something that they feel value for. And I think that the more that you let people actually see the process, you are roping people in. And I think that, because you are involved, right? It sounds like you are. Then that makes it so that people will see, like, oh, these are the things that he's doing. If you just give them a little bit of what you're doing, it starts to get people more and more involved. My intern from a couple years ago is now my deputy chief of staff. Like, that's how, he's only 21 years old, and he's that amazing because he's that involved and he's that dedicated. I think that that's how you get people, and that's how you lift them up, and that's how you start to make that change.
I would just echo what the Assemblywoman said. If you're volunteering for a campaign, and let's say you're on the social media team, it might just be asking a few of your friends who are good in social media to, hey, do you mind doing a few posts, or do you mind doing this? Not really making it a political, not saying, hey, do you want to get involved in politics? Because the answer to that is not going to be favorable, but sort of saying, hey, this person, this great candidate that I'm supporting, she needs a little bit of help. You're really good at Twitter. Do you mind helping me out with a little bit of this? And just letting them peek in to that process and letting them into that ball of energy, because every campaign has a huge ball of energy around it. And hopefully that energy will suck them in. So I think sometimes it's a little bit more of, asking people to help and not making it so much of a political type thing, and just getting engagement. Just get them engaged. However way you need to, just get them engaged.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks. It's a symptom of a larger trend. Asians are the fastest growing racial minority in the country, but API millennials are the lowest in terms of turnout and political participation compared to their peers of other races. I mean, we can talk about the factors that led to that happening, but making sure that we have accountability and agency over what we can do. We need opportunity models. More folks like the Assemblywomen and the Councilwoman in Georgia, they just elected a 30-year-old, their first openly gay and Asian American in their state house in Georgia. So more folks like that. So it won't be so surprising, and everyone can feel like they can do it. For me, in my advocacy work, I can't tell you how hard it is to talk about something like a zoning variance in Little Manila in Queens so that folks can sign a petition and share their information to mobilize in opposition against this hyperdevelopment that's happening there. But it's learning how to translate wonky stuff like that into our language, not literally, but like colloquially. How do we make something like that sound fun and interesting? And that's just a challenge for us.
To close us out, will the three of you leave our audience and myself with a very short 140-character poem? Just words of wisdom. What do you want to leave folks with tonight?
If women of color are leading social movements across the country, we're leading Black Lives Matters. We have led the largest protest in American history, then we can run for office and win.
I would say stop thinking about it and just do it. Just do something. And in closing, I am running for office, so my website, JannieChung.info, there is a donate link there. Stop thinking about it and just do it, please.
I think I just want to leave you guys with the phrase of amplify each other. I think that we have all seen the Washington Post article about how Obama's administration has the women who help to make sure that each other's voices are amplified. And I think that we have to make sure that we're doing the same thing.
Incredible. I want to thank the three of you so much for your time, your wisdom, all of your energy, everything that you shared with us. I learned so much. I've heard this phrase a lot, but want to offer it on our way out. I know we cannot be what we can't see. You all have stood up when we couldn't even see the example in front of us, so thank you for being here.